halls of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels feared to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride.
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
And now recorded from the CRW studios in Almost Heaven, West Virginia, it's the Country Roads webcast with your host, Jordan Cruz.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the Country Roads webcast here for episode 201, and no need to adjust your phone screen, your computer screen, or your television set. We are indeed in black and white in honor of the Coal Rush. That's why we're sitting here looking like we're in the movie Clerks, all monochrome and stuff. But we're doing this in honor of the upcoming Coal Rush, the debut of the new uniforms, the new crowd theme for West Virginia for this big-time game against an 11th-ranked Iowa State as they come into Morgantown for a night game. And joining me to help me preview that game, of course, my two co-hosts, we've got Steven.
What's going on, everybody?
And Bradley.
Howdy doody, let's go.
All right, let's go, gentlemen. It's time for a Coal Rush. I know we're going to get into the specifics of this matchup momentarily, a little bit more of a preview about Iowa State, but right now, West Virginia, I think, has recovered from, what we thought was, an earlier season slump, and 2-0 in conference play. You get the big night game at home for the debut of the Coal Rush uniforms. Iowa State's coming in number 11 in the country, battle at the top of the Big 12 here, who can remain a contender, and it should be in a raucous atmosphere there in Morgantown. So we just want to get your guys' opening feelings about, how you're feeling going into this matchup and how you're feeling about, of course, the upcoming Coal Rush. What are your thoughts, Stephen?
I'm really excited about the atmosphere. I think overall, the Coal Rush is something we as a fan base have been, asking for a while now. So it's going to be really awesome to see what it's like in person and see what that atmosphere is like. I mean, nighttime games in Morgantown are always special, but to add this type of, style, I guess, to the crowd, the color schemes, I guess you can play with. It's going to be really, really, really cool. And it's going to be, obviously paying homage to the coal miners, and that's going to be awesome as well. Seeing Anthony Beck come back home, even though he's, more than likely going to be rooting for the opponent. He's going to be rooting for his son, plays for Iowa State, Rocco Beck. But as far as the game goes, I'm still a little bit 50-50 on it. I don't really know how to feel one way or the other because, West Virginia's, really turned it around after the bye week, it seems. We talked earlier a couple weeks ago about, whenever we came back on and beat Kansas and, that could catapult you into, a little bit of momentum offensively and defensively moving forward. And it really seemed to. So you got to hope that you can continue that. But on the flip side, Iowa State's been playing some really good football. So it's going to be a good game, hopefully. I'm tired of saying that it's going to be a good game, and then it turns out not to be.
Yeah, I think this one's got the makings of a classic. It could be for sure, especially if you can find a way to get a big-time win here. It would be a big win for this program, a big win for Neil Brown, one that he desperately needs, I think, within the fan base for one, but also, you get this win and you're looking pretty good in the Big 12 race, I think, and like you said, this atmosphere probably going to be crazy. I'm excited to see, like you said, the new crowd patterns there. We've seen the True Blue. We've seen the Gold Rush plenty of times. We've seen the Stripe the Stadium. But this is the first time everybody's going to be there wearing black. So it's just going to give a whole new kind of ambiance to the game. But, Brad, what are your opening thoughts in regards to this matchup, the Coal Rush, just everything that's at play Saturday night in Morgantown?
Yeah, boy, I'm just excited. I think I'm just that's what I'm feeling. I'm just feeling excited. It's going to be a fun game of football. I feel like it's two quality teams. It's probably the most exciting game to come into Morgantown for a minute. You got a high-profile opponent, top 20, coming in rocking, ready to roll. Night game, which is like not something we saw a lot of, especially early years of Neil Brown. Saw it more in the last couple of years, but this definitely feels like the biggest one at night so far in a long time to really have that potential to be absolutely crazy. And so for that, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the fans. I'm excited for the football team. I'm really sad I'm not going to get to be there myself to see it and experience it. But I will say there are some very cheap tickets online right now. That y'all, I say there's some like lower bowl seating like on the 50-yard line for $80. Like,
We need to sell that out.
yeah, we need to fill that in. That's what it is. I'm mostly excited. It's going to be so fun to watch. It's going to be so fun to experience, and I'm envious of everybody that's going to be there.
Yeah, man, I'm hoping that it's as crazy as I'm expecting it to be. I think everything's lining up in a good way for West Virginia, both the early success you've had in conference to set up this game, and then, of course, it being the Coal Rush. That should add a little bit extra juice to the atmosphere and everything going on up there to maybe give West Virginia a little bit of an advantage, because you need those type of advantages when you're trying to pull an upset against a team that's nearly ranked in the top 10. And, it's funny, I know it's been mentioned, but, Bears mentioning here again that that's the same formula that Iowa State used back in 2018 against West Virginia. West Virginia went in there ranked number 6th in the country, and nearly like 6 years to the day, because that was October 13th. This game's going to take place on October 12th. Iowa State hit the blackout that night and dominated, and that environment was crazy from what I've heard people talk about it that were there. I heard Jed Jerning mention that on his podcast the other day. So West Virginia needs to replicate that and come out and have a good performance, and hopefully have, what goes around comes around a little bit on that one, have history repeat itself, but in favor of the Mountaineers this time. That would be nice to see. Super excited about this environment, and just everything in the lead up to this game has been great as well. I'm sure people have seen, on social media, there was the trend to everyone, blacking out their profile pictures for the Coal Rush, even the coaches, the media, everyone's got in on it. That's why the thumbnail for this episode is in black and white. And of course, we decided, hey, let's take it the next step further. Let's do the whole episode in black and white. So just a lot of fun stuff in the lead up to this one. So hopefully the juice is, worth the squeeze there at the end, and West Virginia plays well on Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely. That's what would cap it off, right? That's what makes it special. It would be absolutely special to win this game.
Agreed. Yeah. Could be one of the signature
really
wins. It
really sets you up for, another big game and another night game the very next week against Kansas State.
Yeah.
I think even regardless, I don't know who does Kansas State play this weekend?
I believe it's Colorado.
Colorado? Okay, well, regardless if they win or lose that game, it's still going to be, a big game in Morgantown the very next week if you win this one. So
yeah.
Every game from here on out really is a big game. There's really not one that you can point at and say that.
I mean, for me, I feel like our whole is made in this game and the next. That's it right there. That's really going to tell you where we're looking at.
Yeah,
at this Big 12.
And I like the mentality the coaches are using. You guys know last year they used that 14 to get people through. This year, since they started Big 12 play, they've been using the 1-0 mantra. I'm sure you guys probably saw they even covered up the schedule with just a big poster board that's got 1-0 written on Sharpie, and that's their motto every week. So I think it's a good way of hopefully keeping these guys focused, and it's worked so far. So hopefully it continues to work, because I think West Virginia is a bit of an enigma right now when you look at them, because it really just depends on how you want to look at it. If you want to be optimistic or pessimistic, because you can say West Virginia's only 2 losses are to undefeated teams if you're on the optimistic side. But then if you're on the pessimistic side, West Virginia hasn't beaten a team with a winning record yet. So I think we're really going to find out about a lot about our team over these next couple of weeks, starting with this big matchup with Iowa State.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of my thoughts have come to that point right there. I was going to ask, do you guys feel like we have beaten an over 500 team yet this year? Because I feel like that's been the big thing. The point the last couple of years is like, have you beat good teams, right? If you
Right.
beat good quality
Right.
teams, and so it's like looking at this year is like, is Kansas and Oklahoma a good quality team? Are either one of those going to get to 500?
It's iffy right now at
I
best.
Yeah,
still
definitely.
believe Oklahoma State's a good football team. I mean, I think we still beat a good football team the other day. They're very battered right now, man. Like they had a lot of injuries
Yeah, those two
to
linebackers were
deal with.
crushing,
Yeah, those
especially when
two
you got
lone.
running backs.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
mean, but Ollie Gordon, a stud, proven stud, and we shut him down. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Alan Bowman's been there for 7 seasons, and we shut him down. So I mean, like, West Virginia. I still think they beat a really good football team the other day.
Yeah, you got to be
But
impressed, especially with the way the West Virginia defense performed. So, um, with that, I think Kansas as well, you can look at as a team that's not a bad team either. Their defense looked pretty good, I thought, in our matchup. And literally every game they've lost this year, they've lost in the final seconds, and they've had a lead kind of up to that point. They've just really got to find a way to close out. So I think there's a good chance that either one of those teams could end up being bowl teams, or maybe even both if they both, can get things figured out right.
I mean, it's kind of a paradox, really, because I mean, like, the teams that really seem to struggle at first in the first portion of this season have started to figure it out. West Virginia's starting to figure things out. Texas
Yeah,
Tech's starting to figure things out. Colorado, man, like they never really
Colorado's
struggled,
good.
but Colorado's kind of figured things out a little bit, it seems. And then some of the teams that we thought were playing some really good football earlier on are now, kind of struggling. UCF's,
Yeah, I heard.
they're
Sorry.
struggling. Kansas, they're struggling. I mean, you never really know, man. You never know, and it's not just in our conference. It's all over the place. Look at Alabama and Vanderbilt. I think Tennessee went down to Arkansas, didn't they?
Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
it was a pretty wild Saturday. Pretty wild Saturday.
Yeah, it was a crushing day for the top 10, especially the top teams.
And a
Yeah,
lot of parity this year.
Yeah, and
but
I
I
heard
mean
them
that
mention,
just
looking at the Big 12 this year, like the people right now that are in the top of the Big 12 rankings were not even close to that at the preseason. And so, that's some consecutive years in a row where, man, preseasons have really been tossed out the window. I know that's always been an argument. How can you have a ranking without playing anybody? But last few years, I feel especially it's not meant as much.
Yeah.
But it could, us having a coach that came out and blatantly said that to everybody, and that's just the attitude that we have about it. But I mean, you look at BYU crushing it, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing with those preseason rankings. A lot of times those blue bloods just get up in there and be, overrated every time and then end up falling off after a couple of games or getting upset. I mean, Notre Dame seems to get upset by somebody every year and they'll still be top 10 again next year. So they do seem pretty pointless when you think about the preseason rankings versus how it ended up. Look at teams like Florida State as well. They were way up in there. I think they were preseason top 10. So yeah, they do seem kind of asinine at some point in time. Of course, hopefully West Virginia can find a way to win this game. They'll probably find themselves finally in that top 25, something that's been elusive for a while. So it just kind of goes back to how big this game is. So having said that, gentlemen, let's get into this game a little bit and talk about it. Iowa State coming in, number 11 team in the country, 2-0 in the Big 12, 5-0 overall. West Virginia comes in 2-0 in the Big 12, 3-2 overall. Kicking at 8 o'clock p.m. on the 12th. There it will be televised on Fox. And, of course, it is the Coal Rush game for West Virginia. They'll be debuting the Coal Rush uniforms. Matt Campbell, still the head coach there at Iowa State. He is currently 58-48 at Iowa State. 39-34 is his record in the Big 12. And West Virginia and Iowa State, this is an interesting tidbit. I think I seen Tony Caridi was the one that put this out on social media. Didn't play each other last season, but since the start of 2023, the two teams with the highest winning percentage in the Big 12 have been West Virginia and Iowa State. Both teams went 8-3 during that time. Both teams have won 72% of their conference games. So it's going to be an interesting matchup in a lot of ways heading into this one, just to kind of add on to what we were talking about earlier. But before we get into talking about offense, defense, anything you guys want to mention here about Iowa State in this matchup at the top?
I'm curious to see how this game plays out because they've been playing some pretty good defensive football as well as really good offensive football. I mentioned Rocco Becht earlier. I'm curious to see how our secondary matches up with some of those guys because I was surprised that Oklahoma State didn't throw it more on us. They just kind of handed the ball to Ollie Gordon and we were able to shut that down. But Iowa State's got the capability to spread the field a little bit more. So that's one thing that kind of, has me intrigued about this game.
Yeah. That's one thing that's worrisome to me is how balanced Iowa State can be. Like I said, they got the two great receivers, Noel and Higgins, both very dangerous. And they also have a balanced running game, too, that they have, 3 or 4 guys that'll get carries. Rocco Beck can hurt you with his feet a little bit. So the Iowa State offense does scare me. And the defense is always good there with John Heacock, but we'll talk about him momentarily. Let's talk a little bit more about that Iowa State offense against the West Virginia defense as we get into the matchups on each side here in this game. And then, of course, we'll get to our key to victory and our score prediction before we take a look around the Big 12 and make our picks in the Week 7 Big 12 games. But about the Iowa State offense here, a little bit different this season because they have Taylor Mouser now as their offensive coordinator. He's been there for 9 years at Iowa State, but just took over play calling duties this year. Previously, he was a tight ends coach, but their offense has performed well, as we were kind of teasing up there. 428 yards per game, top 7 in the Big 12. 244 pass yards per game, top 8 in the Big 12. 183 rush yards per game, top 7 in the Big 12, and then averaging 31.2 points per game, which is currently 9th in the Big 12. Their receivers that we mentioned, probably, one of the best duos in the Big 12 as far as duos are concerned. They have the number 1 receiving grade in the Big 12 per PFF, 78.9 as far as their team receiving grade there. And those two receivers, of course, are Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Higgins is the little bit longer of the targets there, 6'4", can hurt you downfield. He has 5 touchdowns on the year and 403 yards. And then, of course, Noel has 451 yards of his own and 2 more touchdowns, and he's a little bit smaller, shiftier guy. And then when you play Iowa State, one thing you always got to be wary of, and West Virginia's going to have to be wary of in this game, is the way that they run the football using, 2 tight ends at times, 3 tight ends at times. Going to be extra gaps out there for the defense to have to fill, so going to have to be very, prestigious in our gap assignments in this game, be able to stick with everything and not get out of our lanes like we have in earlier games this season. We've done a good job the past 2 games, but Iowa State's coming with those good tight ends again. And as Stephen mentioned, the quarterback there, Rocco Beck, son of Anthony Beck, who will be honored into the Hall of Fame in this one. Over 1,100 yards in the season, completing nearly 70% of his passes, 9 TDs versus 3 interceptions. Brad, how are you feeling about this Iowa State offense and how they match up with this West Virginia defense, seemingly looking a little bit more improved since the bye week?
Yeah, I think this is the game right here. I think this is it. Obviously, with the way our defense has been, definitely stepped up the last couple weeks, right? But I still don't think that we've got our problem solved there. I think that there's still some obvious weaknesses, and there's going to be some slip ups there. So I'm not expecting our defense to come in and play elite defense and shut them down. I'm expecting our defense to come in, embrace that mentality of bend, don't break. That's kind of what we've been trying to get to this year, it feels like, And if we can get to that point, then I think that we've got a good chance. To that point, though, I think Rocco Beck and his wide receivers are incredibly talented, and I think that we've seen that several times this year. I think our answer to it has been pass pressure, getting people on the passer, not giving them times, and trying to make it messy. So that's what I see us trying to do again. I see us trying to get up in there, make it absolutely messy, trust that our linebackers can kind of shut down the run game, and hope that we can kind of get to Rocco Beck and get him to make some mistakes. But I don't think you're going to be able to stop him. I think you're just going to be able to hold him. And, in a game, we might be hoping for field goals, not touchdowns. And, if that's what it comes down to, then if we can hold them to field goals, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Might end up being that type of battle. Who can, hold whoever more in the red zone. So red zone offense, red zone defense, both going to be important. But I like what you said there about hopefully continuing to have our pass rush get home and make a difference in the game, because I think that could be something that's a key in this game. The one area of Iowa State's offense that seemed like a little chink in the armor when I was looking at some of their numbers is their pass blocking grade as a team. It's currently 58.4, which is dead last in the Big 12 in pass blocking grade according to PFF. So West Virginia may have a chance to affect Rocco Beck, get in there and get after him on some throws, and that's probably going to be their best course of action because the 2 receivers there, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, super talented there for Iowa State. Stephen, what are your thoughts on the matchup here between the Iowa State offense and the Mountaineer defense?
We hopefully will carry over what we did last week, and our secondary will be able to force them into getting turnovers.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've truly been impressed with. They got 1 in the Kansas game, but then they came right back, and I think they get 2, I think maybe even 3 in the Oklahoma State game. At least 2.
2 interceptions, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, so.
Yeah, because Josiah Trotter's little toe touch, and then the
Yeah,
Jaheim Joseph.
and Jaheim Joseph. That was the other one. But I'm impressed with the defensive line, and they've been able to shut the run down all year long, really. But I want to see how this secondary responds to a good performance like that. You know what I mean? Because they got harped on really heavily and not so quietly by the fan base
Yeah.
for the first portion of the season. So I think it's also helped a lot that Jordan Leslie's moved up to the press box, which I
Yeah, I
don't
think so too.
know why that wasn't the case before, but I'm not a coach. What do I know?
Yeah. It's definitely seems like it's made a difference. I think the defense has been noticeably playing better since then. So
Well, they're
hopefully that
playing
continues to be the
like
case.
we thought they were supposed to.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, that was especially last game, man. They really looked good. And that's what I mentioned before is that Oklahoma State, did have injuries, but those were on the defensive side. You were playing against, the full strength Oklahoma State offense and put on the good performance that you did. So it's a good sign for West Virginia's defense. Like I said, the only thing that worries me is about having the extra gaps with the 2 and 3 tight ends that Iowa State will use. Hopefully we're still able to maintain our gap integrity there and have the good run defense we've shown throughout the season. We'll need it against Iowa State's run game there. Jalen Jackson is kind of the one leading that right now, 295 yards on the season, averaging over 6 yards per carry. Then Abu Sama, of course, the talented sophomore, is back. He has 242 yards in the season. And then Carson Hansen is kind of their power back, but he has 211 yards of his own. So 3 running backs with 200-plus yards, and Rocco Beck can hurt you with his legs as well. So did want to tip the cap to the Iowa State run game, not leave them out of the discussion there as well, because they are a balanced offense, can hurt you in either direction there, passing or running the football. So West Virginia's defense going to have to put on another good performance. But guys, any other thoughts here on this matchup between the Iowa State offense and WVU defense before we, spin the block and talk about the other side?
I will say I feel like this is their chance to really show that, if they can improve on the last couple weeks and come in and make it more than just bend don't break, then I think that you got something to really be excited about because in that 3 weeks in a row. So, if they do come out and play well, I think that will say a lot.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I mean, you play well this week, and you pretty much solidify yourself, as as a good defense and a good offense.
Yeah, not as bad as we thought you were.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And like you mentioned earlier, the whole thing has been you haven't beat any quality teams. Well, Iowa State is a proven quality team. They're undefeated right now. This would be everybody's saying. I've been hearing things like it is last week the Oklahoma State game is that Neil Brown's statement win right now, but hopefully it's short lived, and then this one becomes his statement win. That's what I'm
Yeah,
really
this
hoping.
definitely would be.
Yeah.
This is a big game. Big game for the program, big game for Neil Brown. And West Virginia's defense needs to come out and perform like they did last week. Because if they do, I really like West Virginia's chances a lot if West Virginia's defense can hold teams like under 30 points, because the West Virginia offense has been, over 30 points in most games dating back to last season. And we know we have a good offense. So if the defense can continue to look improved as it has last week and, the week prior, especially towards the end of that game, I think it gives us a lot better chance. When the WVU offense is firing on all cylinders, let's talk about that West Virginia offense matching up against this Iowa State defense now, guys. That Iowa State defense, still coordinated by John Heacock in his 9th year there at Iowa State, really does some interesting things there. They're always very good halftime adjustments. They play so much better football in the second half, especially on the defensive side. He's one of the best in the conference. At adjustments, I believe they're running that 3 safety defense that Iowa State runs. Will be the first 3 down lineman defense West Virginia has to face this season as well. And all the other teams we've played have ran 4 down linemen on their defense. They've had some injuries, though, this year. They're dealing with some injuries at linebacker as well, much like Oklahoma State was. They've been having to play some true freshmen, things like that, and had a couple other guys get banged up last game, but they're expected to play in this one. So they're not at full strength. Not to say West Virginia necessarily is either, but definitely an Iowa State defense still playing good despite the injuries they've had there. Currently number 2 in the Big 12 in defensive PFF grade at 84.7, but the most number that stood out to me the most was their coverage grade. 91.5, number 1 in the Big 12 there in pass coverage. So, West Virginia, when they go to the air, may not have as much success as they do pounding that thing out. So hopefully, they continue to feed that West Virginia run game that looked so good last week there. They have 3 defensive backs and their 3 safety secondary that have 2 picks each. There's being Darian Porter, Jontez Williams, and Jeremiah Cooper. Defensive lineman that stood out is J.R. Singleton. He's a force there. Big man in the middle, 3 sacks on the year. And then at the linebacker position, like I said, it's been a bit of a mixed bag there because they've had to play a lot of guys, so kind of doing it by committee. But Cooper Ebell currently leads the team with 35 total tackles, also has 1 sack. So what are your thoughts on how this defense matches up with West Virginia's offense that seems to hopefully finally be, finding its proper footing, getting this run game going the way that we thought it would be earlier in the season, Stephen?
I kind of like the way that we match up with them. Them being limited at linebacker, not saying that they don't have talent there. Their freshmen may be talented. I haven't really seen much of them. I watched their game last week, but I wasn't really paying attention to the defensive side of the ball per se. I was watching their offense. But I think that we could be able to run on them a little bit. But I'm curious again to see how our receivers match up with their DBs, because if they got a 91 coverage grade, that's probably the best since we've seen, Penn State.
Yeah,
probably. Hopefully our receivers will be able to make some plays. And Gigi looked like he was, far more accurate this past week. And also hopefully Gigi's, fully healthy.
Healthy, yep.
I know that he came in and he played a hell of a game, but I mean, he was bound and determined that he was going to come into that football game and prove himself. He was not coming out. You can see it in his face.
Tough,
like he was toughest kid that's played in WVU in a long time.
Yeah, you gotta love him for that.
But also again, I'm confident that if Nico came in, that he could, he proved it last week. You can come in and
yes, sir.
They're not going to change the way that they're calling the offense, which I'm truly impressed with. I really want to commend Neil Brown for that one, because for him to just be able to still run the game the same way with 2 different quarterbacks, and then he mentioned again that he has 2 quarterbacks that he believes that he can win the Big 12 with. So,
yeah,
and I believe him. We've seen that. Nico's a dog.
Yeah, I think we did. I think Nico proved that.
Yeah,
that touchdown throw is no joke. You go back and look at it.
Yeah,
Traylon Ray is covered, man, and he puts it right in his chest. And I can't look at that without thinking that's not a throw that Garrett Green would ever be able to make.
Yeah,
like that ball's sailing high, that ball's going wide. The wide receiver might be able to make a play on it, but Nico put it in there.
And Nico, he threw and ran the ball like really well. I mean, his throws were right on the money, well timed. He made really good decisions. He didn't turn the ball over. He led 2 really good drives, in the middle of the game, and then another one at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they had to nail it down, but.
Yeah, Nico was looking good out there passing and running the football. I was impressed, and I think the things that the coaches had said about him actually proved to be true there when we saw him get on the field, so that was nice to see. But I do like what you pointed out there, Stephen, about attacking them, via using our run game. I think that's hopefully our best course of action as well with some of the injuries they've had. Hopefully we're able to run the football, and then maybe that'll open up some other things for us, because them having such a high coverage grade does worry me a little bit. But also, on the more optimistic side, I remember when we played Kansas, we were talking about how good the coverage grade was for Mello Dotson, because it was through the roof, and Hudson Clement really, ate him for lunch. So hopefully Hudson Clement comes out and shows out again, and maybe West Virginia surprises and does use the pass to open up some things in the run game, because I'm sure Iowa State's going to be keying on that run game. But hopefully West Virginia figures out a way to have a good day offensively. Brad, what are you thinking about this matchup here with that tough Cyclone defense under John Heacock?
Yeah, for me, man, I feel like it's more of the offense has got all the talent, all the potential in the world to hang there with anybody. I don't care who the defense is. You've got it. You know what I mean? And I think that Neil Brown has shown that he can be a good play caller and can beat defenses that are good, right? For me, it's you just got to show up and play, right? Like you got to show up, play, and you got to play clean, right? I think that that's really where it comes down to for the offense. You got to not turn the ball over. You said they've got 3 DBs with 2 turnovers each. That's how Iowa State's been winning games, man. You want to see a team and why they're 5-0, that's the answer right there, man. Like it's easy to win football games when you're getting more possessions.
Yeah.
And so stealing possessions, that. So Garrett Green's got to come in. He's got to play clean football, and I think a lot of that comes down to getting the run established. We can't, we got to get the run game going. We got to get some push going on the line, so that way it opens up those passing lanes a little bit. We get one dimensional in this game, we don't have a chance.
Yeah.
Agreed. We're gonna have to try and find a way to make both things work there for us there in that matchup. Because, like I said, they're probably going to know that we want to run the football, especially after we just ran for nearly 400 yards. They're going to come in trying to shut that down first and foremost. So, going to have to make some plays in the passing game, one way or the other.
Well, both running and passing. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
You're going to have to play, the same caliber of game that you played this past week. 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. And depending on how the next couple of weeks go, I have to do it for the next 7, 8 weeks.
Yeah. And hopefully, it's wide
we
open.
get one
It's the
more
Big
bye
12
week.
It's going to be a lot of close games. So, yeah, definitely going to have to bring your A game. And I think here, especially with what we talked about here kind of at the opening of the episode about the atmosphere, all the lead up going into it, just everything that's involved around it. You don't want that to be, too big for you and you come out like you did against Penn State. I think you need to show, the fan base and everyone there in the stadium and watching on TV, hey, we have grown. We're a different team now, and come out and get off to a fast start in this game. Keep that crowd engaged and have that be a factor for the entire game.
Very much so, absolutely. Yeah. The Mountaineer actually even got a blacked out.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That looks dope too.
I didn't see that yet. No.
Yeah, black leathers.
Black leathers.
Yeah,
first ever, man. How special.
Yeah, it looks pretty sweet. So everything's going to be different, man. It's going to be a lot of special stuff going on. They're going to have that drone show. So, everything, WVU's got everything around it. Now the players just got to come out and back that up.
I was hoping that Iowa State has a white set of uniforms, all white helmet, jersey, and pants.
Oh, yeah, I saw they wore it last week at home.
Yeah, they wore it last week at home, so I don't know if they're going to wear it against us. They're probably going to add some color in there to try to throw it off.
Probably.
But red and white for sure.
Yeah, they're going to white jersey, red pants, if I had to guess, for sure. Red helmets.
Yeah, that's what I would suspect to contrast everything. But
let's see if they posted anything on their social media. You know how we.
Yeah,
I'm sure they probably already.
We'll do live investigation here. Also, if you haven't seen it, the WV football released a pretty cool video on their page.
Oh yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to release like multiple videos this week because they already put that one out, and then of course they're doing the uniform reveal tomorrow. They probably got some nice stuff planned for the Coal Rush, man. I'm thinking they're going to have a lot of pomp and circumstance around this.
Yeah, they haven't.
I hope so.
Iowa State hasn't released anything on their uniforms yet.
So they haven't released theirs yet. They'll probably release it tomorrow when we do, which maybe today by the time you guys are listening to this. Hopefully you guys know. Let us know in the comments if we were right. If they go red, white, red, as we kind of predicted here. So we'll see what happens.
I think we're black, black, black is my guess.
Speaking of predictions, guys, it's about
all
time
black
to
game for them too.
Just everyone in the state, both teams wearing the same colors, and just have to.
No, I was saying
it'll be horrible to watch.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All black.
I'm like, yeah, no.
Head to toe legit. But gentlemen, it's about that time to get to predictions. But before that, we got to talk about our keys to victory. Keys to victory this week. I'll lead this one off, I guess, since I've made you guys take the floor the past couple of times. For me, my key really is pressuring the passer, limiting big plays there from the Iowa State offense. We know they can deliver them. We talked about Higgins and Noel, Rocco Beck there at the quarterback position. But the stat that I keep going back to that I think is going to give West Virginia a chance in this game and their defense a chance to perform well is the one I mentioned earlier when we were going over the matchup, but it bears repeating here again. Iowa State currently dead last in the Big 12 in PFF pass blocking grade with a 58.4. So you see that, and you got to think that hopefully TJ Jackson can have a big game, the type of one that can be, game changing where you get, 2 or 3 sacks, something like that could be a game changer for West Virginia, could be a major key. So I think for me, pressuring the passer is my key to victory. Steven, what about you? What do you got, man?
I actually had, tackles for loss, but I'm going to go for something different because it kind of meshes with yours.
Goes hand in hand. cause some chaos, wreak some havoc.
Yeah, I'm going to say win the turnover battle, because I feel like if you do that, then you got a pretty good chance of the way that our offense has been playing. You got to believe that they're going to continue what they've been able to do. If you score over, I'm going to say if you score over 35 points, you could possibly win this football game. Probably will win this football game.
Yeah.
So if you can create turnovers, then you also, if you capitalize off of those turnovers, you got a pretty good chance. So that's mine.
I agree. And we've had those happen the past couple of weeks in our first two Big 12 games, something that we hadn't had happen a lot. So it seems like we're
Yep.
getting better and improving there. But we've also dropped, a couple would-be pick sixes a couple times this season. So you've got to think one of those is going to go our way, and this would be a perfect game for it to go that way, get the crowd rocking, have everything going great. So great key there, definitely one that will affect this football game one way or the other. But Brad, what about you, man? We want West Virginia to come out with a victory, but what's the key to helping them get there?
Well, I was going to say turnover margin. So,
we're all on the same wavelength here.
So then I'm going to come down to the run game, man. I think that, like I said, we got to get that movement in the front line. I think you hit 200 yards rushing, you got a really good chance to win this game. I think that that's a definition of what our offense is, and if that's moving, like I said, those guys have showed up. If the defense can bend, don't break, then we've got a chance to win that game. But if we don't come out and do that, we've got no chance at all. So that run game's got to go.
Yeah, we're going to go as the run game goes for sure. So way to switch it on the fly to one that is still a major key in the game, man, because definitely got to see Jaheim White continue, have that performance like he had last week, finally got going. Him and CJ together can be a lethal duo. And, of course, not to mention Garrett Green and Nico with the running ability they have as well. So definitely a key here. Hopefully it can help lead West Virginia to victory. But now it's time to talk about if we think they'll be able to pull off that victory in this big Coal Rush game in Morgantown, 8 o'clock at night, number 11 team in the country coming in, and you got a chance to go to 3-0 in Big 12 play and be there at the top of the conference, solidified as a contender moving forward. Can West Virginia pull it off? Stephen, what's your prediction for this game against the Cyclones?
Like I mentioned earlier, this is something that we as a fan base have been wanting for a long time is this Coal Rush, and for a long time we thought we might get the black uniforms one day, but we didn't really know if they would call it the Coal Rush. And, I think that just adds to what would have already made it a great atmosphere doing this at a night game. Like I said also earlier, Anthony Beck's coming back home. That's going to, be a big thing. You got the drone show. I think that's going to, liven things up. You pair that in with the new lights in the stadium. I think that place is going to be rocking. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think West Virginia is going to continue to play like they played last week, and I'm picking them to lose, 34-31.
Yeah,
and
man.
if you're watching this show, and if you watched our watch along show, you know why I'm lose.
Yeah, that's right. We've already talked about this just being not necessarily superstitious, but maybe a little stitious. So, definitely I don't blame you for making that pick, because also got to credit this Iowa State team, man. They're a really good ball club. They've got a chance to, go on to, big things. They're being predicted to potentially be in the college football playoff right now, 5-0 through this season thus far. And, their passing offense does worry me a little bit with some of the struggles we've had in the secondary. So, Steven, I'll go ahead and follow up with my prediction after you, man, because, throughout this season on the podcast, me and you, we've been talking a lot about stealing each other's notes, stealing each other's ideas, because it seems like we've been having some telepathy or something, because I'm thinking the same as you, man. I can't pick us to win yet either. Maybe if they win this one, it'll finally get the tide turned for me. But, part superstitions and part just because I got to see them do it against a good team. I think that Iowa State's going to come in, unfortunately outlast us there at the end. I think it'll still be a great atmosphere, great game. West Virginia with every chance to win, but Iowa State steals it at the end with a game-winning field goal in my prediction, 31-28 over the Mountaineers. Brad, what about you, man? Bring us home with your prediction. Maybe we can get a little bit more light here in this episode.
Yeah, I don't know. This is tough. This is tough. Yeah, because I also come back to it, and I agree that we have not had a win over a good team that's over 500 under Neil Brown. I think that Iowa State's a great team, and again, you got to do something special. This is not just a normal game. Winning this game is doing something special. It's not going to take just like an average effort. It's going to take something unique, individual, and determined. And with that, you just haven't seen it under Neil Brown. It just has not been there. He's tried to, but it's just never been able to overcome that. So really, I think that he finally does it, and the Mountaineers come through with a win. I think that we get a 42-35. We take it home. Blackout, cold rush, get her rolling. Let's do something special.
Absolutely, man. This is a chance to do something special. National TV. And that's what I like about how this matchup set up. Because if you guys remember, after we lost to Penn State, there was all the pomp and circumstance around that game as well. Neil Brown, one of the things he kept mentioning post game was, we had this chance in front of a national audience and we failed, but now we got to try and earn the right to have this opportunity again throughout the season. Well, you won your first 2 conference games. You've earned the opportunity again, Neil Brown. Now you got a chance to, perform differently, show the nation you are a good football team still yet. So definitely would be a big-time win there, Brad, and I like the optimism you're bringing here with the prediction for the win for the Mountaineers. And one of the last things I want to mention here before we get to talking about the Big 12 here and make our picks for Week 7 around the conference is just if you are going and attending the game, be sure, wear black. Definitely make the crowd theme pay off there for West Virginia, can really help the atmosphere. And, of course, it's the first Coal Rush. We want to make it look good there in that national setting. So did want to mention that there. But what about you guys? Any final thoughts here on this matchup or anything?
I wanted to add something to what you just said. If it makes you – I mean, I know that a lot of you might be Steeler fans, but if it makes you, any more motivated to wear black and not mess with the color scheme that we're trying to pull off, I mean, we don't want it to look like a Steeler game. We want it to look like a blackout for WVU. So, use that as your motivation. Yeah. Just an all-black shirt. That's all you really need.
Yeah, there's plenty of
there's a lot of people that they go.
Yeah, I don't really understand the attitude.
Purpose.
I understand tradition. I understand tradition, but like, I'm wearing my gold shirt and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like you care more about yourself.
There's
you're saying it's for tradition. You're saying it's for tradition, but you're just making it about yourself. You want to be you, and you want to not, support the team. That's what it is.
Exactly.
You're not supporting the team by doing that. You're showing up in a gold shirt to be like, hey, look at me. You can't. It's not a school color. It's not a school color.
Well, and gold's an Iowa State color, so you're gonna just mix in with the Iowa State,
Yeah, go join them over in the corner. I'm sure they'll have some open seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the energy we need at all. So if you're going, wear black. I mean, it's a movement. Like we said, take a look on social media. Profile pictures blacked out. Heck, look at this episode you're watching right now. We're in black and white. I mean, come on. Everyone's supporting the cause. It's a movement right now. Coal Rush. Steven's got the Coal Rush hat. Got the Deshaun jersey. We're all ready for it. We're ready for the Coal Rush here in this monochrome episode. But speaking of that, gentlemen, whoever wins this game is going to position themselves right up in the top of the Big 12 race. So let's talk a little bit about that conference and other teams that may be up there in the top there as well following this week, because we have some matchups that are kind of contender or pretender matchups that go along with the one we've talked about here between WVU and Iowa State. So let's talk a little bit about the Big 12 schedule this week and make our picks for Week 7 around the conference. Pull up the slate here, and we do have a Friday game on the slate between the Utah Utes and the Arizona State Sun Devils in Tempe there. Late kick, 10:30 Eastern, Friday night here on October 11th. It'll be on ESPN. Arizona State has surprised, been a lot better than people expected, and Utah, I think, got knocked down a peg a little bit with their loss to Arizona after they thought they were going to come in and dominate the conference, but they've already lost to one Arizona team. Will they fare better against the other Arizona team there in Arizona State? What's your pick, Steven, for this matchup?
No way, Jose. Give me the Sun Devils.
Hey, I like
Scatterbo.
A man after my own heart. Scatterbo going to get it done there in the run game. I think Arizona State pulls off another shocker at home, continue to surprise, Big 12 fan bases around the country with their performance. Plus, Utah, they've talked too much junk heading into the season. They got some bad karma coming their way, so I think Arizona State pulls it off. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Utah goes to the bottom of the Pac-12 standings.
Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? Which moves us into the Saturday games. plenty of good ones here as well. Of course, the game of the week, honestly, of course, we think would be Iowa and WVU, but because of that purposes of us already talking about it, K-State and Colorado, the late kick will be our game of the week. So it'll be our last one that we pick here, but that allows us to go in chronological order here, at least then anyway. And we have Cincy and UCF 3:30 kick on ESPN2 to start the Saturday slate. Cincy looking a little bit better than maybe what we expected early in the season, whereas UCF has kind of taken a step down. Don't know what's going on over there in Orlando. They've had, 3 or 4 players even hit the portal since their little losing skid has began, and they've stopped scoring as much offensively. Hopefully, maybe they're able to right the ship now coming back home. But what are your thoughts on the matchup here with the Bearcats between the Knights, Brad?
Yeah, I feel like this is a funky one for sure. This is kind of a team that we expect nothing of. It's kind of gotten a little mojo going. And you got a team in UCF, which we expected to really kind of take a step this year in the Big 12 Conference, and it's not really been the case. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I think UCF in their own home, I thought they would get it done against Colorado. They didn't get it done. I think they do get it done against Cincinnati. So I'm going to go with UCF at the bounce house this time.
I like the pick. The bounce house is underrated, tough place to play. And UCF, we know they got a lot of weapons. And honestly, I would pick them in the matchup, but the reason that I'm not is because they done got on my bad side now after I picked them last week to beat Florida. Even had them involved in a parlay I was doing yesterday. That week during that game to pick them to beat Florida there as well. So they got on my bad side. Made me look bad with my pick here. Made me lose my parlay. So I can't pick UCF now. I'm going with Cincy to get the upset win on the road there in the Big 12. Steven, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was going to pick UCF. But then you guys, I don't know, you guys maybe want to pick Cincinnati. I don't really know who to pick. Give me Cincinnati.
Hey, he's going with Cincy. He's going with Cincy over UCF as well. They're in that early matchup there on Saturday, which then brings us to Provo, Utah. And we got the BYU.
No need. Give me the Cougars. Go BYU.
Show. Hey, that's right. Friend of the show here, Steven, one of their biggest supporters, called their success probably before anyone that I know of. But 4 o'clock Eastern, they're playing Arizona. Brad, we know Steven's going with the Cougars. Who are you going with here? Do you think Arizona can get the win there over BYU, or are you taking the Cougs?
Upset alert. Upset alert. Beep.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think Arizona's coming in, man. I think that there's a little bit of juice there. I like what they got going on. I think that BYU might overlook them a little bit, and I think that that's going to catch them off guard. I think that I'm going to go with Arizona in this one in an upset.
How dare you?
Oh. He's hit you with the how dare you. He hit you with the how dare you. Just because I don't want Steven to be mad at both of us, I got to go with BYU to say get the win at home there. I think they play a lot better at home. They have an underrated atmosphere there. So I think in the 4 o'clock game there on Fox, same network West Virginia will be playing on later in the night, BYU gets the win to begin the day. So I'm going with the Cougars, which then brings us to our game of the week. Not a ton of games on the slate this week. A lot of teams had bye weeks last week, and then the others have them this week. So right now we're at the game of the week, of course, and that is Boulder, Colorado. Colorado takes on Kansas State, welcomes them in. Colorado has surprised. Kansas State, of course, still a contender, still ranked in the top 25, but they're having to go there and play in Boulder at 10:15 Eastern on ESPN. Steven, our game of the week here, the Wildcats and the Buffaloes. Who do you think comes away with the W?
This is actually, really, really, a really intriguing matchup. This is going to be a good test for Colorado to see if they actually are as good of a football team as what everybody's been talking about in the media. But I'm gonna go with a bit of a manifestation pick because I want Kansas State to win for a few reasons. So I'm going with the Wildcats. Obviously want West Virginia to win this weekend, but want Kansas State to win also, so it sets up another good atmosphere next week.
Yeah, would be another big matchup, and if WVU could find a way to win, it might be ranked on rank because a win could likely propel WVU into the top 25 ahead of that game even. So Kansas State win would be big. Playing in Boulder, I think, is tough. Colorado has surprised me. They looked more improved than I thought they would, but I think this is the game where they come back to earth a little bit. I think Kansas State goes in there and wins it, gets the win on the road, and comes into Morgantown next weekend, still ranked. For some of the same reasons, I think, Steven, I'm going to go with Kansas State there. Brad, what about you? Who's your pick in our game of the week this weekend in week 7 in the conference?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kansas State too. I'm just not a fan of Colorado.
Yeah. I think we're all in agreement on that portion.
And do they play at any other time slot than 10 o'clock at night?
I know. They've had night games all season long, seems like.
All season.
Yeah, but that's our thoughts, man, as far as the Big 12 slate this week. Our picks for all of the games there, including our thoughts, of course, on the Mountaineers and the matchup with the Iowa State Cyclones. Broke down the matchup on each side, gave our key to victory there in our score prediction, and, of course, made some Big 12 picks. But, gentlemen, any final thoughts here as we wrap up our black and white episode here for the Coal Rush, in honor of the Coal Rush? Any final thoughts on that? The atmosphere, the upcoming game, anything around the Big 12 or anything that we did get a chance to talk about that you wanted to mention here at the tail end before we wrap up episode 201? You got anything, Brad?
Nah, man. Like I said, I'm excited for the football game. It's going to be real exciting to watch. It's going to be two good football teams. I hope it's good and clean, and, man, I hope the Mountaineers come away with a win. And that's really, like I said, it would be something special, something we haven't really felt under Neil Brown in a long time. And I really think that could be the igniting factor of what's really going to set off this season. So,
yeah,
fingers crossed, eyes glued, black on. Let's go.
That's right. It's all set up for you right here. You got a great opportunity in front of you. As the late, great Bill Stewart said, got a dandy out there waiting on you. Got to go out there and play your best in it, and this time with the nation watching, really put on a show in what's going to be an awesome atmosphere. I truly believe it's going to be a great night game atmosphere in Morgantown. Go out, hopefully try and take down the number 11 ranked team in the country, and then you really set yourself up for a potential awesome season like we thought it could be previously. This team maybe then we can all agree, is coming around to who we thought they would be heading into this season. But, Stephen, what about you, man? Any final thoughts here before we wrap up episode 201, our Coal Rush edition of the Iowa State preview and predictions?
You kind of touched on it a minute ago. You've never been ranked under Neil Brown. So you got a potential to, if you win this weekend, if you do get ranked, that'll be the first time that's happened under this coaching staff. So, for a lot of reasons, this game is a big game, and we've joked about it a little bit, but in all seriousness, a playoff spot is not out of reach right now. That's the beautiful thing about them expanding the playoff is, a team like West Virginia, if you catch fire, towards this, especially this part of the season, and then heading into the back half, if you win the conference, you're in. So all of our goals are still attainable. So we just got to go out and make things happen. And I'm not by any means predicting anything. I'm just saying, it is attainable. So.
Yeah, it's right there for you. Just got to go 1-0 every week, like the coaching staff has been preaching, and hopefully you can continue that motto and continue to act it out on the field to fruition like you have the past couple of weeks in the first 2 Big 12 games. Try and go out and do the same here in a night game in Morgantown for the upcoming Coal Rush. And that's been our thoughts on it. Last thing I want to mention before we wrap up, guys, is we appreciate you tuning in here to this episode, whether you watched on YouTube. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, give us a like. That helps a ton with the algorithm there. And subscribe here for a ton more Mountaineer football coverage throughout 2024. We also appreciate you on the audio side. You can find on any podcast platform you choose, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it. Just search Country Roads Webcast and leave us a rating if you take it in on that way there. Preferably a 5-star one if you would. And, of course, shout out to the guys over at WVSportsNow.com for hosting our episodes on their website. We're appreciative of them for that as well. Having said that, gentlemen, it's about time for a Coal Rush here, and West Virginia is going to bring the great atmosphere and a great environment as they welcome in the number 11 Iowa State Cyclones. We can't wait to watch it. No, you guys can't either. Hopefully the Mountaineers come out on the winning side of it, and we'll have a fun episode to react to then on our next episode there, which will be episode 202. We're releasing that early next week. Hopefully it's after a Coal Rush victory for the Mountaineers. For my co-host Brad and Steven, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go, Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those